I'm Dudley Brown here, and I'm on Capitol Hill this morning for one real reason, and that's to make sure your voices are heard on Capitol Hill to oppose gun control. Now, these boxes back here are the first delivery, 140,000 petitions out of 1.3 million petitions that are being delivered to the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, as well as the President, urging them no gun control, and specifically no deals and no red flag. Now, our NAGR staff have been working furiously to deliver these. It's a hot day and we're already working at it. We're going to be here all week delivering these petitions, and I want to thank you for your signature on them. But I need to introduce the congressman from Kentucky and the House Second Amendment Caucus Chairman, Congressman Thomas Massie, who I wanted to... Good morning, and thank you for your work, and I'd love to talk about some policy issues that have been happening on the Hill here. You'll pardon me if I sweat. I'm not used to the heat like Kentucky.
The swamp is a little humid.
The swamp is a little humid. Some people think it's a hot tub. I think that's your line.
Yes.
I'd love for you to tell gun owners across America what has been debated last night in House Judiciary. What happened?
Well, we've been back for 36 hours now, and they've already passed 3 gun control bills out of the Judiciary Committee. The 2 most problematic gun control bills they passed just last night. By the way, your petitions got here just in time because this is past Judiciary, but it will come to a vote of the full House eventually. I mean, these bills aren't going to get stuck in committee. Every liberal Democrat wants a chance to vote for these gun control bills because they got to pay back their donors. And so this will be back on the floor of the House. The 3 bills that passed just very quickly last night, red flag law, okay, which we all know, even the liberals know it's unconstitutional. The federal government can't do this. They have no constitutional authority to confiscate guns based on a report on Facebook or whatever they use.
Without due process.
And so, but what they're going to do in this bill, they're going to take your tax dollars and then use that to bribe the states. And then the states who do implement red flag laws will get grants, get the money from the government. Now, the ironic thing is
from the taxpayer.
Yeah, they're giving the states the money back that they took if they comply. So that's probably the worst thing that passed. The second bill that passed last night, and these are in order, was a high-capacity magazine ban, and I'll say so-called high-capacity magazine.
Normal capacity.
Yeah, I think 20 rounds would be average, and 30 would be essential, but they passed a ban on anything that has more than 10 rounds last night.
Seems reasonable.
The difference between this ban, as far as I can tell, I've read the bill, and what they did in 1994. In 1994, they grandfathered everything in, and you could still buy and sell what was already in circulation. I believe, if I'm correct, this bill lets you keep a magazine, but it won't let you transfer it. So that's really bad. If this thing becomes law, it'll have to pass the House and pass the Senate. But it's very
that's nice.
bad.
And we get to keep our property. We just can't hand it to our kids,
It becomes worthless to anybody else because they're a felon if they become in possession of Dudley's magazines. So
now they
really
think
bad.
so. The law enforcement still have them. However, they can't actually. Our lives are not worth the same. The little nurse who wants to carry a handgun concealed when she gets off her late shift and has to walk through a dark parking lot. She's not worth the. She doesn't get the tools for self-defense.
10 rounds only. By the way, the police in Dayton, 6 trained law enforcement officers used 58 rounds to stop the shooter in Dayton, Ohio. So you're telling me that 6 police officers can have 58 rounds, and then the mom who's trying to protect her kids, who gets woken up in the middle of the night, only gets 10. That's ridiculous to me. But that's what the liberals said last night in Judiciary Committee, and that point was brought up by one of the Republicans who were fighting this in Judiciary. The third thing that passed was it supposedly bans you, well, it definitely bans you, but for supposed misdemeanor hate crime. Okay, what they're trying to do is lower the threshold for a so-called hate crime. I don't know anybody that loves the person they shoot or commit crime against, right? Every crime is a hate crime.
Right,
You can't
right.
say you didn't hate the person if you were going to abuse them, right?
Yeah, and shoot them,
Right.
commit murder. You probably liked them.
But these hate crimes could just, they're misdemeanor hate crimes. So these aren't shootings. These may not even be an assault, and it's up to each state to define what a misdemeanor hate crime is.
Yeah.
But they've got more than a dozen categories. Here's my problem with hate crimes. It doesn't matter what's in the criminal's head. The victim is a victim.
If they committed murder, they committed murder.
Right.
Who cares what they thought?
I don't care what they were thinking, but I
What their
can tell you
motivation
this, they didn't love the victim
Yeah.
if they committed the crime. So anyways, but a misdemeanor hate crime at the state level would ban you forever from possessing a firearm. Now, again, I don't support crime, I don't support hate, but it's their definition of a misdemeanor hate crime and using that to ban you from forever owning a gun. And the problem with that bill is it's hard to defend a hate crime, right? So you're going to get some Republicans actually vote for that bill when it comes to the floor of the House. 3 pieces of legislation passed last night within 24 hours of us returning to Congress after the August recess. These petitions, I think, are going to be consequential in sending a message to some of these folks.
Now, often groups collect petitions and many of them just use it as marketing, don't deliver them. We deliver these. We want to make sure your voices are heard because that's a part of petitioning government is telling them exactly what you think about to the people who are supposed to represent you and telling them your views. Might not change their minds, and certainly in rough areas it doesn't. But the marginal members of Congress, they have to listen to that. They're the people who vote for and against them.
Yeah.
And but back to the policy.
Yeah.
The question is, what is likely to come out? I know that there's talk right now, since I think all the pressure we put on red flag has made that a little bit toxic right now, at least in the Senate and maybe in the full House. But then the question is, what about the TAPS Act? It's a new and kind of being pushed. It's being pushed by some Republicans.
Mm-hmm. I haven't taken a look at it. I've got a lot of Republicans who want to do something.
Do something.
Do something. So they're bringing me bills and saying, hey, would you take a look at this? Would you take a look at that? Bills to expand the NICS background check database with another FBI database I've seen. I'm not going to, I can't comment on that. I haven't read it diligently. And so I'm going to reserve judgment.
I know you're one of the few members of Congress who actually likes to read the bills before you comment on them and before you take a position. I understand that.
You know what, Dudley? I think we need a waiting period. We need a waiting period for Congress to pass legislation. They need to wait long enough to read it. Like some of these people haven't even read what came out of the Judiciary Committee last night, and they're already supporting it. So,
well, isn't the phrase in this town, vote for? You'll have to actually vote for it and pass it before you get to read it.
Before you, to see what's in it.
To see actually what's in it. That's happened on numbers of pieces of legislation.
Honestly, the reason they say that, I've come to realize, is it's a bureaucracy that's going to implement these vaguely worded laws, right? The laws are just sort of guidelines, and then they turn it over to the fourth branch of government, which can be the ATF, or can be the FBI, or could be some local state bureaucracy that implements the red flag laws. And that's the fourth branch of government. They will be implementing these vaguely worded laws. And so, in fact, you might not know what you got when the bill passes, even if you read the bill, until the fourth branch of government gets a hold of it.
Yeah. Well, our goal as an organization and as gun owners around the country is to really look very carefully at this legislation and pick it apart and say what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And what we do know is what was passed by the House Judiciary Committee last night, none of it will stop mass shootings. None of it will even slow it down. In fact, we've already done a high-capacity, quotes, high-capacity magazine ban in America. It was a 10-year high-capacity magazine ban under Feinstein, and it did nothing whatsoever to stop crime, stop mass shootings. In fact, some make the case that actually accelerated it because it disarmed the people who were law-abiding, who didn't have those magazines, and of course,
well, that's the problem.
Criminals don't care.
That's the problem with expanding the background checks. Why would you do more of a system that doesn't work, right? Why if something's not working, why would you expand it? Because we've had 3.5 million denials of people purchasing a gun, less than a few hundred prosecutions. You know, everybody who tried to buy a gun, who wasn't eligible to buy a gun, lied on that 4473 ostensibly. They should have been prosecuted. So the question is, are they just lazy at prosecuting those denials? Or, and this is what the case is, those denials were actually law-abiding gun owners, 99.99% of them, who were denied the right, their God-given right, not this, nobody under that dome gave you the right, their God-given right to own a gun by the government because of a failed background check system. We do not want to expand that system.
I know I was actually representing gun owners back in the day when Brady passed. That's about when I started, and I opposed it then for one simple reason. You can't confiscate the guns you don't know about. And we know that's the final straw. That's really what they're trying to get at. The members of the Judiciary Committee who voted for that legislation last night, we know they would force you to turn in and confiscate guns under penalty of law or under penalty of death by law enforcement if they had the votes.
You know, that's a great point. One of the things that's finally coming to light here is that when somebody mutters, nobody wants to take your guns, they're either stupid or they're trying to fool you.
Bamboozle you, yes.
Because, I mean, either for the better or for the worse, my colleagues in this chamber are now coming out saying they want to take your guns. Yeah, let's take them. If we can get this through the Senate, that's what they're saying. We would take them. And people say, oh, well, no, what we mean is we're not going to take your hunting rifles. Well, number one, the Second Amendment is not about duck hunting, okay, or deer hunting or any form
as great as that is.
Yeah, I love all that, but it's not about that. And the other thing is, really? They don't want to take your hunting rifle? When you get served an ERPO, a red flag law at 5 a.m. in the morning, and they bust down your door.
They're only taking your AR-15,
right.
though.
You think they're going to say, give us everything but the hunting rifle?
Yeah.
Hell no. They're going to take everything. They're going to take, if you've got a paintball gun that looks like a gun, they're going to take it that morning.
And certainly your self-defense guns that would protect your family, of course they're taking those as
right.
well. Even airsoft, I'll bet they're taking those.
They're going to take anything. They're going to take Grandpa's old musket, you know, that's they're going to take it all.
Well, the euphemism right now is they're going to buy back those guns.
Yeah.
First of all, with what money? We're broke. But second, buy them back. They didn't own them in the first
They
place.
didn't sell them, except for the guns that Eric Holder sold to the Mexican cartels. You know, Eric Holder could go to Mexico and buy those back.
I'm in favor of hiring Eric Holder to do that.
Let's
count
send
me in
him
favor.
down there.
Let's
He
send him
sold
down
them
there.
the guns. Those are the ones he can buy back.
And let's send him with cash. I don't think he's coming back. So, Congressman, thank you. Thank you for leadership on the issue. Thank you for. I know you've got other meetings, but I especially thank the caucus and the members who have guts to stand up against these, to offer amendments last night and to oppose it. But as well, I mean, I know as Congressman Louis Gohmert, fought against it last night, and there were other members who opposed it. But I mean, now it's coming to the floor, and frankly, we all know a lot of the fight's in the Senate.
Yeah, the fight is in the Senate, but here's why it's important that your congressman, Republican or Democrat, doesn't vote for this junk, even though it's going to pass the House. Nancy Pelosi could pass all of this gun control without a single Republican vote, but she wants Republican votes here so that when it gets to the Senate, it gives cover for the Republican senators who they're going to need to pass this gun legislation. You need to stop it in the House. You need to make sure that conservatives don't think, oh, I could vote for some common sense gun control.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't find a member on the left side of the aisle in there that doesn't think that everything is common sense gun control. Like this, when somebody says common sense gun control, I say, okay, you tell me the ones that you think defy common sense.
Right.
Because every one of the sponsors of those bills in here think all the gun control is common sense. So in any case, don't go for that. Don't let your congressman go for that. Republicans shouldn't be voting for that in the House because it's only going to give cover to the senator from that state.
That's right. If especially Republicans start saying, yeah, that's okay, it'll drag a marginal senator over on the other side.
Yep.
So I know your staff is trying to drag you out of here, and I want to thank you.
Transportation hearing. We do other things besides guns, but this is the thing I'm most passionate about.
And that's why I'm here with you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.
All right.